And we do know that there's got to be a reason why this is called Touch of Satan, even though there's nothing satanic going on whatsoever.
Yeah, we never do quite get that reason.
Well, there's a very small amount, some would say a touch, of Satan in this movie.
We'll talk about that later, maybe. This time we watch Season 9, Episode 8, The Touch of Satan.
In which Satan gives us a big fat goosing.
But first, hey, we've got we don't have so much follow-up as we've got some important news. And that news is that it's Halloween times.
Yes, and for our bilingual listeners, say Halloween.
What? Is that a thing?
Yeah, there's this song that they often used to play. I used to go to a French immersion school, and there's this song by a fella, I believe his name is Elliot Brood, and it's this French-Canadian song called C'est Halloween.
All right. The Shags song, It's Halloween, is always what comes to my mind.
Naturally.
But listeners, especially those of you who are going to go out and celebrate this Halloween, I strongly encourage you to please go watch a short film called Halloween Safety. It's on the Mads channel. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's going to give you some very important information that'll go down real smooth.
You'll have thrills, you'll have chills, but more importantly, you'll have spills. It's going to be great.
And we don't want you to die on Halloween.
Yeah.
Then you won't be able to hear our next episode, whatever that's going to be.
And who's going to donate to our Patreon?
Oh, no. Speaking of which, we've got a little bit of listener mail, which just came in so rapidly. It's not even in the show notes, so I get to surprise Adam with this one.
All right. Wow.
Listener Jason writes in to say, "Good afternoon. I'm writing first to put my money where my mouth is in thanking you for your podcast by joining your Patreon."
Hey!
Thank you very much, Jason. And second, to tell you that my achievement is unlocked and I've completed my MST3K watch through.
Whoa. That's a tall order. Oh, my God.
Jason says, "That's right. I finished every episode of the Joel, Mike, and Jonah eras. There were some moments when I didn't think I was going to make it, but just like the competitive hot dog eaters on TV, I dipped the bun into a Dixie cup of water and kept muscling through."
Oh, God, that's horrendous.
It's the throat muscles that really help you get through the rougher episodes.
Oh.
"Sometimes the show made me feel like a kid again. Sometimes I wondered how it was I'd never seen a certain episode before. And sometimes I was surprised at how much I had missed in episodes I'd seen dozens of times. I feel like I have a deeper well to draw on from when I want to pull out an episode for a certain purpose or to make me feel a certain way. Favorite episode? Hard call. I'm going to split the difference between Manos and Space Mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
Episode if I want to introduce new fans, it's got to be either Final Sacrifice or Cry Wilderness. Hidden gem? Probably Deadly Bees. I don't know how I'd never seen this one before, but it was pure joy. Thanks as always for your deep dives in each episode. It always makes me happy when I see a new one pop up in my list." Well, here it is, Pop.
Wow. And you know, Jason finished just in time because new episodes will be coming out shortly.
Well, at some point, they've certainly started filming. There's lots of news about it. We're not going to go into that. You can check up on their Kickstarter page. We'll have a link in the show notes for that, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, sometime next year, sometime soon next year, who knows? Not for Turkey Day, it looks like.
Aww.
What else is happening for Halloween? Well, Adam, you've got that podcast about horror movies. Do you have anything special planned for Halloween?
I do, because the podcast has been on an unplanned hiatus while I've been editing episodes. So the intended September episode will be coming out. Well, actually, will very likely be out by the time this is out. That'll be on Bride of Chucky, which was shot in Canada, and our 3rd anniversary episode, which is going to debut on Halloween.
That French immersion school really paid off.
It totally did. Now I can speak beautifully. But the anniversary episode on the Canadian shot Freddy versus Jason will be launched on Halloween 2021.
Ooh, very good, very good. We should also shout out that another podcast on our network, Hubris Ween, by friends of the show, Tim and Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, every October, they spend 26 days in October going through an alphabet of spooky ooky movies. They started with letter A is for April Fool's Day this year. I don't know what letter Z is going to be. But,
Woody Allen Zelig.
Maybe that. That was always my favorite, but now it's tricky to have a favorite.
He's scary.
And also, I have a new little podcast.
Ooh, just in time for the podcast debuting season, which always tends to happen around Halloween around these parts.
Exactly. Yeah, it's called Game Show 1939, featuring the scariest thing of all, ignorance. Ooh, because you won't know the answers to these questions. They're trivia questions from the 1930s, like literally written in the 1930s out of 1930s trivia books.
Mm-hmm.
I found a bunch. I turned them into a game show. I subjected some willing subjects to it. They seem to have a good time. Listeners have said really nice things about it. There'll be a link in the show notes. Go check it out if that sounds like your jam.
And you'll be able to answer all sorts of questions about the chemist and apothecaries.
Maybe some of those questions are super duper weird. But enough about other podcasts. It's time to talk about this one.
About this podcast?
About this very episode of this very podcast, about the MST3K episode, The Touch of Satan.
Oh, recursive occlusion. How satanic. This time we watched Season 9, Episode 8, The Touch of Satan. A young fella named Jody is driving across America and ends up in the country. There, he meets and falls in love with Melissa, a girl who has sold her soul to Satan and says that she's a witch. Melissa takes Jody back to her family's walnut farm for what feels like the kookiest setup for a romantic comedy this side of the Sarah Michelle Gellar vehicle, Practical Magic. But we're in an allegedly scary movie, and Jody is soon scared out of his wits when Melissa shows him to his room. Oh, don't get me wrong. The accommodations are nice, but inside is a withered old hag. This is Lucinda, whom Melissa claims is her great-grandmother. In a shocking twist, Lucinda is revealed to be Melissa's sister, despite the fact that Lucinda looks so old. Turns out both Lucinda and Melissa are over 100 years old, but only the former shows her age by looking like a shrunken applehead, while Melissa appears to be in her early 30s. Melissa tells Jody the truth and urges him to believe in Satan. But Lucinda has a tendency for violent outbursts and, as such, attacks Jody. But she's a decrepit old woman of more than 100 years of age, so Melissa sets her on fire. After all that, Jody decides to stay with Melissa, Satan or no Satan. The two sleep together, and faster than you can say, real grandmas! Melissa rapidly ages and is not long for this world. To restore her eternal youth, Jody gives his soul to Satan, and, they all live happily ever after? The end, I guess.
Meanwhile, on the satellite of love, Tom and Crow come a wassailing to Mike, who says he's out of wassail. It's July, after all. Well, the bots point to a part of the song that says if the listener can't provide wassail, they must provide their debit card details. And eventually, Mike finds some canned wassail, so his finances are saved. Meanwhile, down in Castle Forrester, Pearl is on vacation, so Steffi the babysitter is in. She makes Brain Guy, who she calls Brian, play with blocks and yells at Bobo for chewing on a shoe. In segment 2, Mike has started a walnut ranch and immediately gets covered in sweat. Tom has started a pecan farm and is dressed in linens and rolling in money, even without growing his first pecan. That's the sketch. Anyway, in segment 3, Mike is piling stones onto Crow to find out if he's a witch. Crow isn't in any pain, so he thinks he's probably a witch. Though Mike thinks it might be because he's a robot. Or, hey, wait, maybe he's a frog. Anyway, turns out Mike is wearing Tivas, which might be the most shocking moment in the entire episode. Segment 4 opens with Mike trying to read one of Henry Kissinger's endless tome-like memoirs. Servo's white-haired grandma comes in and attacks Mike and sort of babbles. Real Servo comes in to calm her down, but now the death lust is in her. Anyway, after the movie, Crow has sold his soul to Satan. Except, no, he sold it to Stan. So they call Stan, but Stan has already sold off Crow's soul in a bundle to Citicorp. Oh well, Meanwhile, back at the castle, Steffi is reading Bobo and Brain Guy Green Eggs and Ham as a bedtime story. Brain Guy gets a bit cranky at the implausible plotline, but then realizes he's just overtired and needs to go to bed. As should we. The end. Well, it's the sci-fi era.
It is.
We notoriously don't like the sci-fi era very much.
Uh-huh.
How did The Touch of Satan hold up?
Well, I'm pleasantly surprised because I had no memory of this episode. And, I was happy to find, it's like, I actually think this is one of the better episodes of the sci-fi era as a whole. Like, I would recommend this over something like the overrated Final Sacrifice or the overrated Werewolf. This I actually enjoyed. Even though the movie is incredibly boring, I think they make good hay out of it.
I agree. This was a pretty decent episode. I laughed a few times. There was only one joke that was a little bit maybe transphobic, but it was fast and over with. And, what are you going to do? Overall, I laughed a few times. I enjoyed it. And the sketches were tolerable. They weren't great.
No, but I will say this. I was surprised. And this perhaps just goes to show you how much the Pearl dynamic doesn't work. Because if you take her out of it, and you replace her with another character, it's instantly a lot funnier.
That is the thing, right? Like, I love Mary Jo.
Yeah.
She's great. She's very funny. But having Bees in, the Bees, who's usually the prop diva, is how she's usually credited, but she plays Steffi, the babysitter in this one.
Yes, Bees McKeever, not the Deadly Bees, also season 9.
But she's playing it straight. Like, she's not trying to be funny. She's just trying to be a normal person in this situation, ignoring all the silliness that's going on, as opposed to having three completely over-the-top characters. It works a lot better, it turns out.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually, it makes Observer funnier, and it makes Bobo seem less repulsive, and so it's win-win, and it results in one of the funniest lines in the episode, which is just where she identifies Crow as cow, and he responds to that, and it's like, that's such a silly joke. I liked it.
Yeah, no, there's some good stuff there. Mary Jo was off filming a segment with Leonard Maltin that would be in a later episode.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why she's not there. And I think it worked out in an interesting way. What else? Well, so you said the movie was super boring.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So here's the thing about this. They make a lot of jokes about how the pacing is really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
How there's a lot of pauses in the dialogue in particular. And I think that they're right. But they're suffering once again from what I think of as the Girlstown effect, which is that because they're making jokes in the middle of the big long pauses, it doesn't feel nearly as badly paced as it surely actually is.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Like, because I remember from Girlstown, I always thought that was a pretty well-paced movie until I tried to watch it unmisted, and it was a complete slow slog. And I thought, oh, right, that's why. Same thing here. I mean, it is slow still, so it must have been unbelievably slow to watch it from their perspective. And I have no interest in seeing this unmisted. Mm-hmm. But it didn't strike me as nearly as bad as they were making it out to be from my perspective watching it riffed.
Yeah, I had a feeling. I looked up what it was like unmisted. There's a couple of different versions floating around out there. The most significant addition to which seems to be that the actress who plays Melissa does a little nudity in one of the cuts, and that seems to be it.
Is it Melissa, or is it? I thought it was Grandma who got a little nude.
Oh, was it Lucinda? I don't know. That
was my understanding from reading up on it, but I didn't see the scene.
No, nor I, because that would involve watching more of this. And I had no interest. But I think the MST3K treatment did its charm and made this, highlighted some things that were fun to notice about this particularly dreadful picture, and also tried to play down the effects of this particularly dreadful picture. Hey, you know what? The kids today, whether it is Say Halloween or whether it is a spooky movie soundtrack, the kids today love spooky musical stylings, Chris.
That's true.
And to elaborate on this, I say we go to a little Halloween-themed corner that we call the Scorner. All right. So, what did you make, since it's off commented on in the episode, what did you make of the score for Touch of Satan?
I didn't hate it.
No. I kind of liked it. I mean, admittedly, I liked some of the goofs about it. In particular, Mike has a riff where he refers to it as the odd, disturbing score written by Mike Post and Igor Stravinsky.
Yep. It was a very appropriate thing to say at that moment.
Odd, disturbing score co-written by Mike Post and Igor Stravinsky.
Yeah. Touch of Satan is the work of Roberto Ragland.
Never heard of him.
Oh man, it's fun. I mean, because like you can abbreviate his name as Roar.
All right, his name is fun, but I've never heard of him. Has he done anything?
Oh yeah, he's done some stuff. Let's get into it. So Roberto Ragland, he starts off. He's in Chicago playing piano and learning music, and he serves in the U.S. Navy for a few years. Graduates with a business degree from Northwestern of all things. Became a musical arranger for the Dorsey Brothers Orchestra.
Oh.
But also, kept pursuing his education in music, attending the American Conservatory of Music in Chicago and the Academy of Music in Vienna.
That's a commute.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how that worked with the Dorsey brothers, but Ragland found a way, and he leaves music following the death of Tommy Dorsey.
The better Dorsey.
Yeah, I can't pick a favorite.
Actually, I don't know who the other Dorsey is. I know he had another Dorsey, but Tommy's the only one whose name I know.
So Ragland seemingly abandons music for good to become an ad executive. And he's successful at this for a while, but grows bored and moves out to California in '69 to become a film composer.
It was Jimmy Dorsey.
Oh, that's the better Dorsey? See, when
Tommy. Well, I think Tommy's the better Dorsey, but Jimmy died first.
Oh, okay.
No, I take that back. Jimmy did not die first.
No, Tommy Dorsey dies first because Ragland leaves.
Sorry. Jimmy died like a few minutes later.
Jimmy cracked corn, but I do not care. So in 1969, he does exactly that. And he ends up scoring more than 50 movies from the late 60s onwards, including such films as Abby, the crazy movie that is also about Satan. He scores the Larry Cohen film Q, the Winged Serpent. He scores The Thing with Two Heads, in which Ray Milland plays a rich old racist who gets his head grafted on to that of footballer Rosie Greer.
Yes. Oh man, I remember seeing ads for that when I was a kid, when it would be on HBO.
One of the greatest posters of all time.
Yeah, it's a really good poster. The special effects in that film look amazing even today. They really, it's good that they did that before CGI. Have you seen that movie?
I've seen it more than once.
Is it any good?
No.
Okay.
In fact, I saw it as part of Trash Palace when I rewatched it.
Oh, very good.
I sought it out as on my own when I first saw it because I just knew it by legend. Yeah, they who knew that such big suits existed before the talking heads were a thing. But most importantly, he would go on in 1979 to score the film Jaguar Lives, starring, you guessed it, Donald Pleasance.
Oh, okay.
Hey-o. But then he, in between all that, he scores The Touch of Satan. And I kind of like this score, even though if you were to somehow sum up what 1970s TV movies sounded like, it would be this score.
Yeah, probably. I have to admit, I remember a few times thinking, that's kind of interesting, but it didn't make a tremendous impression on me. Mostly because I was too busy being bowled away by everything else in the movie. So I guess I have to go back and next time I watch it, try to listen a bit more to the music.
Yeah, it's got some nice passages to it. And I particularly noticed, and this is the more 70s thing of it all, is there's some like distorted flute noise and I think frequent harpsichords.
Mm.
And that's always a very 70s sound to me. That's always like Columbo is on the case.
Oh, okay.
You hear like chirpy harpsichord music a lot in the 70s. And it's here to stay in The Touch of Satan.
So it's the chirpy harpsichord, not the sort of spooky harpsichord.
No. Or not even the pompous harpsichord of George Harrison's Piggies.
There you go.
But there's a particular sound that is credited to a musical instrument called a glass harmonica, not to be confused with the glass onion, to add another White Album reference in there. And I had no idea what that was. I had to look it up.
Well, we've talked about it on the show before, I'm pretty sure.
We have?
Hold on. Let me just go check the archives.
Oh, no.
In The Beast of Yucca Flats, episode 73 of our show, I bring up the glass harmonica because we hear it there as well.
Oh, dang. Wow.
But it's certainly cool. I'm happy to talk about it some more.
No, I just, I had no memory of recording that episode. So I just looked up a guy playing the glass harmonica.
Oh, you know why? Because that is the episode with Money Talks, featuring Benjamin Franklin, inventor of the glass harmonica. That's why it came up. It's not in the movie at all.
Okay. Yeah. I was surprised, pleasantly surprised to find out it was a invention of Franklin's, allegedly for a more convenient way to play musical glass.
Yes, but it's a lovely, weird tone.
Yeah. It definitely, there's a great video of just a fellow playing the glass harmonica and kind of talking about it for a couple of minutes.
And if you go to our show notes for episode 73, you can see a great video of Mr. Rogers playing it.
Oh, wow. Well, it certainly seems like a friendly Mr. Rogers instrument.
Yeah. Podcast amnesia, it's for real.
Oh yeah, this is a real affliction, and this is what your Patreon dollars are going to support, because one day we'll find a cure.
We'll have talked about everything and therefore have forgotten the world.
Mm-hmm. But you have Ragland. He's doing some playful things here. I think he delivers a score that is very much of the time. And to me, his scores always sound very busy in 70s. Like even when we leave the 70s, when he's putting out work, it always sounds super 70s to me, which is probably why he did eventually retire. And for his last 5 years, he was mostly just conducting orchestras for, events like the Emmys and the Oscars.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And as a weird bit of trivia, this is, I guess, the insular world of film composers. From the mixed up files of the true fact of James Horner dating Jerry Goldsmith's daughter, in 1972, Ragland marries Martha Montgomery Newman, because her husband had recently passed, and that was the 9-time Oscar-winning composer Alfred Newman, not to be confused with Alfred E. Newman.
Right.
Yeah. I guess she was just the marrying kind for film composers.
Dang, you get a fetish. You stick to it.
Must be nice for a guy to come with his own baton.
Well, that's not the only music we hear in this movie, because, as the bots are keen to point out, you sure do hear a lot of that Amazing Grace throughout the movie.
Wow, I had no idea that a film other than Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, used Amazing Grace so much.
How much does Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan use it? I've seen that one. I don't even remember Amazing Grace showing up in it.
Oh, man, they played at Spock's funeral.
Oh, of course. Well, that makes sense. What do you know about the tune Amazing Grace?
I mean, I know the words, probably because less having to do with my family's partial background as Roman Catholic, and more to do with the fact that it was used in a lot of PSAs.
It's not a very Catholic hymn.
No, I suppose it's not.
Or at least it doesn't come out of that tradition. I don't know if it's been adopted by them at all, but that's not where it emerges from. The story behind it's kind of interesting, or at least the guy behind it.
Yeah.
It was first written, well, the words were first written in 1772 by an English guy named John Newton, who had kind of a life. He was born in London. His mother died when he was super young, and his father was a shipping merchant who often went away. And so when young John Newton was 11, he ended up joining his father as an apprentice on the ship because, like, what else is he going to do? And it turns out he was a bit of a bad boy.
Oh.
He was a bit disobedient. He wouldn't always do what he was told. He was a bad kid, as we talked about in a recent episode.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what happens to bad kids who are on ships in the 18th century?
They go to jail.
They go into the Navy.
Ah.
They get pressed into the Navy. And he was kind of a bad boy. He didn't always do what he was supposed to in the Navy. And in fact, once he deserted the Navy in order to see a girl that he was into, a friend of the family who lived back home. So the Navy got angry at him. And you know what happens when you do bad things in the Navy in the 18th century?
Court-martial.
You get traded from the Navy to be part of the crew of a slaving ship.
Oh, close enough.
Yeah. So he begins a career in human trafficking. But he's kind of a bad boy.
Wow, so he's not one of those nice human traffickers.
Well, yeah, we'll see. But no, he's not a very good sailor, at least in terms of being a crew member. He likes to make fun of the captain, and he often finds himself thrown into the brig or chained up. And at some point, he, manages to become enslaved.
Oh.
So yeah, he ends up enslaved working on a plantation in Sierra Leone. His father finds out, manages to intervene, manages to set him free. I guess that's a nice thing that most slaves in that era didn't have a chance to have happen to them. But there you go. So he ends up being back at work as a sailor in the slave trade. Whew, he continues to be kind of a bad boy. And apparently, you might like this, he had a habit not only of cursing up a blue streak, but of inventing new curse words to shock everyone.
Okay.
Which, remember, he's amongst sailors. So that takes a bit of creativity, I think. I don't know. Then one day, his ship was in a very bad storm, and he nearly died. He was instrumental in saving the ship. He basically got lashed to some devices that really helped keep the ship steady in the storm. And so when they finally land a little bit later, he interpreted surviving the shipwreck as, I guess, some kind of divine intervention. But he really starts thinking a lot about God and being a bit more godly in the world and not so much of a bad boy. So he starts a slow conversion process. He marries that woman that he deserted the Navy to go see. And, now he's a married man and he's seeing a bit of God. And he starts finding it more and more difficult to go out to, sea and to go out into the human trafficking business. This is starting to be a little bit more distasteful to him. And he starts thinking, maybe slavery's bad. Maybe.
It's a hot take.
It is. By 30, he has ended up retiring from sailing. So then he starts studying sort of informally Greek and Latin and theology. And although he doesn't get an official university degree, he gets ordained as a minister. And this is at a time when hymns are getting super popular. And vicars like him are supposed to write hymns. So he gives it a try. And one of those tries are the lyrics to Amazing Grace, which, then gets published in what turned out to be a very popular collection of hymns. And not long after that, it's, mostly ignored. Eventually it gets published in America, and it gets set to a different tune, which is called New Britain, and that's more or less the tune we know today. That version gets published in the mid-1800s in a shape note anthology, and that's the version that starts getting real popular. And I want to get back to that in a second. After that, it gets quoted and updated a bit in the very popular novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. Then there's a gospel adaptation of it that does very well. Then we enter the age of recordings, and recordings of it sell like hotcakes, especially Mahalia Jackson's version from 1947. And then it was sung a lot during the civil rights struggles of the 60s. And then it was used in The Touch of Satan, and it continues to be popular and used in movies all the time.
Oh, okay.
So that's basically how we got Amazing Grace. But there's that one step in the middle that I'm also curious if you know about. Do you know what shape note music is?
No, I can't say I've ever heard of that.
Oh, it's kind of amazing. And I think everybody should know about it. So shape notes are a system of notating music. Have you ever learned how to read sheet music?
Oh, man, I'm terrible at that. No.
Well, a lot of people are terrible at it. And some people who were trying to create music for communal singing at church thought maybe it would be easier if we gave a bit more information, if instead of just having the different positions of the note on the stave signify different notes, different, tones, if the shape of the note also helped. So you get the information repeated to you several different times by the shape, by the position, etc. And it seems to have worked and led to a lot of amateur singing possibilities. They've done studies. Apparently, it is a very convenient way to get it. If you get really professional singers, they'll sing shape note music and it sounds super normal. Uh-huh. But most of the shape note music singing is done by amateurs in churches, and it sounds very different from the types of arrangements that come out in the Episcopalian church that I grew up in. And I want to give you just a little hint of it. So hopefully you can hear this.
Okay, are they just making noise, or I couldn't make anything out?
In terms of the lyrics, you mean?
Yeah.
So at the very beginning, they're going through the music first by singing solfege, by singing fa, la, sol, fa, whatever the appropriate names of the notes are. It's just a warm-up so that everybody knows where they're going before they sing the actual lyrics. And then after that, they start singing the actual text.
Okay.
It's just another way of making sure everybody knows what the notes are, because you've got the shape, you've got the name of the note, and then you've got its position on the stave. And then you've got that really distinct ecstatic harmony going on, where you have a bunch of people who are very amateur singers just going for these notes and sort of, I don't know whether it's because they're all a little sharp or flat or something, but that weird, somewhat cacophonous, but I find quite stunning and striking and beautiful harmony is what I think of as shape note music. I don't know. I think it's really neat, and it's one of the earliest sort of distinct sounds of music to come out of America.
Wow.
It's from the mid-19th century.
Wow. It's one of America's great original forms.
It is, although not nearly as popular as jazz or rock.
Yeah, or the song poem. Don't forget the song poem.
That's also true. Anyway, it is also public domain, as they like to point out in the movie, which means that you can get away with it, which means that we've also used it. And it seems silly for us to not talk about Amazing Grace, what we have turned to for a punchline so many times on this very podcast.
What's amazing about Grace is that she's so flexible.
Hey, everybody, it's time for the Shallow 13.
It's time for the Shallow 13. 13 tidbits about today's episode, The Touch of Satan. Go, Chris, go!
Hey, listeners. We know Mike and the bots didn't like The Touch of Satan, and we bet you didn't think much of it either. But turns out at least one person liked it. The LA Free Press offered this rave review, quote, "The Touch of Satan makes Rosemary's Baby look like a Sunday school picnic."
Screenwriter James E. McClarty only wrote 4 other films, one of which was Notorious Concubines. Its IMDb plot description is as follows, and I quote, "A Chinese woman is not content with just one man and seduces several for lust and sex. This behavior and needs accelerate to the point that she definitively gets rid of one man to gain the other. She is now the wife of a man with multiple wives and subject to their scorn and occasional punishment. Her beauty and skin only gets her so far."
The original title for the film was Touch of Melissa. Another alternate title, Pitchfork. Not to be confused with Pitchfork, the often tedious music review website, which, wait, is that Pitchfork also a reference to Satan?
Touch is the first film to employ makeup artist Joe Blasco. Blasco's earliest credit is doing the makeup on the Newlywed Game in 1966, but the rest of his resume is pretty interesting. He provided the makeup effects for the aliens who kidnapped Richard Mulligan during Soap's third season. Plus, he worked on David Cronenberg classics Shivers and Rabid, as well as the infamous Ilsa, harem keeper of the oil sheiks, and he even did the makeup work on episodes of TV's Fish, starring TV's Fish himself, Abe Vigoda.
Blasco also did makeup effects for 2 more Misted movies, Season 8's Parts the Clonus Horror, which we discussed on It's Just a Show episode 96, and Track of the Moon Beast, Rift in Season 10.
The film's cinematographer was Jordan Cronenweth, who'd go on to receive great acclaim for his cinematography work on Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watch sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. This is where the fish lives.
At the start of the film, we get a shot of a creepily lit doll, and Tom says,
Oh, there's my Walk Me Wet Miss Susan.
a company with the fun name of EG? EEGEE. Anyway, EG put out a doll in the 50s named Lil Susan, or Susan Stroller, and it could walk, by which they meant it had articulated legs. It didn't look like they ever put out a model which would wet itself if you gave it something to drink, but Betsy Wetsy, a drink and wet doll, was first introduced in 1934.
Early on, Mike quips.
This is very 70s. I'm guessing Anthony Zerbe must be in this.
Zerbe is well known to cheesy movie fans, be it for his appearance as the leader of the mutants in the Omega Man, the corrupt admiral in Star Trek Insurrection, or the evil robotics genius in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. Most importantly, he played the character of Dutchie in the celebrated western Will Penny, starring, you guessed it, Donald Pleasance.
Responding to Mike's Zerbe riff, Crow says,
No, I think it's Tony Musante as a kind of hip Satan who solves crimes.
These days, Tony Musante is best remembered for his role in Dario Argento's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. A forgotten piece of trivia is that he was the star of a 1973 detective show called Toma. After Musante left Toma, the series was retooled and retitled Beretta, and it became a massive hit for its star, Robert Blake.
But there is a familiar face who's actually in the movie. Robert Easton, who plays Mr. Keitel, the man leading the witch hunt in the flashback sequence, played the loathsome Kester in the giant spider invasion, Rift in Season 8. Oh, and we talked about it on episode 94 of this show. But he did a few fun bit parts over his decade-spanning career, including the Kolchak the Night Stalker episode Mr. Ring, where Kolchak goes up against a robot, Dalton Trumbo's Johnny Got His Gun, and he's the Klingon judge in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
Mike and the Bots spend part of the opening credits saying variations on the phrase, Farewell, Satan.
There we go. So long, foul deceiver.
Bon voyage, onerous spinner of lies.
Hasta luego, maverick driving Clutie.
Clutie?
Rudy?
Yeah, it's Scottish. I looked it up.
Well, we looked it up too, and indeed, Clutie is a Scottish term for the devil. A clute, you see, is a cleft hoof. A clutie's croft was a bit of farmland that you would leave untilled so the devil will have some place to play. A clafoutie is a sort of baked fruit pancake. A clugulager is... No, wait, what were we talking about again?
At one point, Mike sings,
But the trees can't help their feeling if they like the way they're made.
Mike, stop it now.
This is a slightly misremembered quote from Rush's song, The Trees, which I only know because I Googled it. This is your annual reminder that not all Canadians enjoy Rush. Thank you and good night.
And finally, the father of the family in today's movie is occasionally compared to Herbert Von Carrion.
Herbert Von Carrion is not pleased with that.
Herbert Von Carrion was a well-known conductor whose career, awkwardly started in Germany during World War II and continued until his death in the 80s. Carrion and his orchestras put out a phenomenal number of records, and by some reckonings, he's the best-selling classical musician ever. And, yeah, kind of looks like the dad in this movie, at least in some photos.
And that's time. So, Chris.
Yes.
You are probably well aware of the trend in which, smoke will billow out of the Vatican to announce the new Pope.
Oh, God, I know where this is going.
do you think they do the same thing when they announce a new Popeil? And there's a new Popeil to be unleashed on the world.
We're talking about Ron Popeil from Ronco and the TV ads. What does he have to do with this episode again?
Tom says that the mom of the mom and dad we see in the film, that mom looks like Ron Popeil.
Mom looks like Ron Popeil.
She does a little bit, sure.
I can see it.
Okay, well, let's talk about Ron Popeil, as seen on TV.
Yes. Okay, so Ron Popeil, I feel bad because, youngsters, if indeed any youngsters listen to this show, it's possible. Youngsters will have no idea about so many things that originated from Ron Popeil that not only became pop culture, but actively became part of things that I said, just became part of my vernacular, set it and forget it, or most importantly, call now, but the absolute best, which was, but wait, there's more.
That is the golden one, yes.
That's the pièce de résistance.
Or just calling anything the blank-o-matic.
Yes.
Which I guess may have predated him, but he really drove that home.
He may not have invented it, but he certainly perfected it.
Or insisted upon it.
What I didn't know is that apparently Popeil's father was a successful or certainly a working inventor. I have no idea of his creations, but I'm certainly well aware of Ron Popeil's creations, care of Ron Popeil's company, Ronco, which I always thought was a joke. I always thought it was supposed to sound like Ronco, and he was in on the joke of himself. But now that he's dead, I'll never know. But some of these exciting inventions, Chris, the Chop-O-Matic, Mr. Microphone, the Popeil Pocket Fisherman, the Veg-O-Matic, the Buttoneer, which I assume just does up buttons, I guess, on your shirt. I don't know what it does. The Smokeless Ashtray.
What?
Popeil's Electric Food Dehydrator.
Yeah.
This one's exciting. The Inside the Egg Scrambler.
No, that's not going to work.
The GLH9, or Great Looking Hair Formula number 9, Hair in a Can Spray.
Wait, hair in a spray can?
Yeah, I think it was the answer to Rogaine, pre-Rogaine.
Oh, okay.
Hair in a can.
Hold on, I'm going to look that up.
There's also the Rhinestone Stud Setter, which later went on to great acclaim as the Bedazzler. There's something called the Cap Snaffler, which I think is something the Smurfs had to fight once. The Ronco Electric Food Dehydrator, the Ronco 6 Star Plus Knives, which I remember seeing all the time, the Showtime Rotisserie and Barbecue, and of course, the Popeil Automatic Pasta Maker.
Yeah, so some of these devices were invented by his father. Some of them, I guess, he had a hand in. I'm not even sure. Some of them surely didn't work. I don't think the spray-on hair did much.
No.
It looks like a quick Google suggests that people had bad experiences with it. I've never heard of an inside the shell egg scrambler working well. People keep trying to reinvent that one. Apparently, Popeil hated incompletely blended scrambled eggs, which... Okay.
That's a weird foe to have.
Just scramble them more, okay? Okay, you're good. And then, hand food processors, the Chop-O-Matic. I don't know. We had something like that was for nuts. Maybe it was a Chop-O-Matic. I don't remember the brand name. It was fine and hard to clean.
Yeah.
Which I feel like a lot of these inventions probably are fine and hard to clean.
That's usually how it goes. That's my memory of it. I dated a girl who had a slap chop, and I recall kind of the same thing. Everybody wanted the slap chop. Everybody loved Vince from the slap chop, but then you have to clean the goddamn slap chop.
The rhinestone stud setter. Wait, that's different from the bedazzler?
Yeah, well, basically, from what I understand, the bedazzler is a slightly rejigged Ronco stud setter.
Was it by Ronco?
Yeah, wasn't it?
I don't know. Let me find out.
Not to be confused with the Vajazzler.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, I see.
It's a competing product from a competing company.
But they stole the idea from Ronco and his stud setter.
I would have to check which came first because it turns out that the bedazzler was invented in 1970.
Oh, okay. That comes as a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
I've been lit Ronco.
Ronco may not have been the most trustworthy company out there.
What? Wow. I who would have thought that the inspiration for the senior Bluth and the cornballer from Arrested Development would turn out to be a shifty character?
Oh, boy. Well, we will try to find a compilation of Ronco ads on YouTube and link it in the show notes. And if you're young enough that you don't really know who we're talking about, or your brain wasn't completely melted by these ads when you were a child, you should definitely go check it out. It'll make the world a brighter place.
Yes, and if you want to support this show, you can do it for 4 easy payments of $29.99, which has over $1,000 value. And remember that this podcast slices, dices, and cuts julienne fries. Well, Chris, I feel like we have touched upon the touch of Satan as much as any sane person should. But do you by any chance have one last thing, one final factoid to share with us on this episode and the motion picture featured therein?
I do, and it's about that Satan thing that we were talking about earlier, because late in the film, when she's finally talking about what happened, how she came to have magic powers and so forth, at the very end of the film, in her little witch shed or whatever it is, our main witch, Melissa, says the lines, "He rejoices in spilled blood and the baying of dogs. He is Gorgo and Mormo."
He rejoices in spilled blood and the baying of dogs. He is Gorgo and Mormo.
I mean, he sounds adorable. If Gorgo and Mormo are his pals, who the hell are those people?
So let me read a bit of a quote from a translation of The Refutation of All Heresies, a book from the early 3rd centuries attributed to Hippolytus of Rome. It goes, "Infernal and earthy and supernal Bombo, come, saint of streets and brilliant one that strays by night, foe of radiance, but friend and mate of gloom, in howl of dogs rejoicing, and in crimson gore, wading mid corpses through tombs of lifeless dust, panting for blood, with fear convulsing men, Gorgo and Mormo and Luna, and of many shapes, come propitious to our sacrificial rites."
There's a lot of goofy names.
That is a lot of goofy names. Here we're talking about a god who is rejoicing in spilled blood and the baying of dogs, and it's called upon as Gorgo and Mormo and Luna, the moon of many shapes. This is not a description of Satan. This is a description of Hecate.
Oh.
Hecate is an ancient Greek goddess of a number of things. A goddess of witchcraft, of magic, of the night, of necromancy, of all things Halloween-y, I suppose. And that's who is being called out to. It's not Satan, it's Hecate. Also, it's a woman, not a man.
Yeah. Which does explain, I guess, the female voice we hear in one of the times Satan decides to communicate.
Exactly. It was so confusing when that happened. And then when I looked this up, I was like, oh, that explains it, I guess. Maybe they changed their mind halfway through filming or something. I don't know. But no,
it's weird because like the only person I know who communicates with Hecate, also another rural character in the film, I'm pretty sure it's Nell, the Jodie Foster character. Doesn't she say Hecate, tay in the wind? 1 point. Pretty sure she does.
I think that's right. I'm certainly not going to watch Nell to find out.
Please don't. So bad.
So that quote gets quoted in the Encyclopedia Britannica entry on magic. at the turn of the 20th century. And then it gets adapted by H.P. Lovecraft into his story Horror at Red Hook.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the names Gorgo and Mormo and Luna show up again. I don't know which of those sources. I mean, I don't think that the makers of this film were reading Hippolytus, but
probably not.
They might have checked the Encyclopedia Britannica entry on magic. They probably had read a bit of Lovecraft.
All things are possible. All things are possible. Although I do not consider this film Lovecraftian.
No, but that doesn't mean that people who read Lovecraft wouldn't have made this film.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Hecate. Pray to her tonight. If you've been affected by the issues on this show, if you've got a really cool Halloween costume, or if you'd like to ask us anything, get in touch with us. Our website is itsjustashow.com, and we're on Twitter at itisjustashow. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see your cool Halloween costume, too. Anyway, this show is made possible by listeners just like you. For as little as $1 an episode, you can help us research and record this show, and you can listen to all our superfan bonus bits. Find out more at itsjustashow.com/Patreon or patreon.com/itsjustashow. And a shout out to our newest Patreon supporters, James, Maria, and Jason. Thank you so much. If you want to follow up with anything that we mentioned today, you'll find links in our show notes at itsjustashow.com/episode/103.
Ooh, if they send us their Halloween costumes, will we put out a strong bad type video in which we comment on their costumes?
We might. We just might.
Wow.
Well, that was The Touch of Satan. We need to watch a different movie for the next episode. We can't just watch this one again. I know you want to.
I mean, it's tempting. It's tempting. A largely forgotten episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. But I think we've said all that we can possibly say about it.
All right. So next time, we should do a season 1 episode next, I think.
Yes. And you know what? Let's go into hard mode. You know what I'm talking about.
Are you talking about 2 Halloween-y friends?
That taste great together, like not like a Reese peanut butter cup? I'm afraid so. And it's also the first appearance of Commando Cody, if memory serves. Yeah,
we have looked at a Commando Cody before.
Yeah, you know, I'm not looking forward to revisiting that.
No, this is a dreadful episode, and we're going to punish ourselves mightily with Season 1, Episode 2, The Robot versus the Aztec Mummy, featuring Commando Cody and the Radar Men from the Moon, Part 1. Not their finest hour.
Yeah, it's the episode they disowned.
Well, maybe we'll have something to say about it. Robots are always cool.
Yeah,
Robot Monster was good.
I enjoyed Robot Monster, and the second best character on Lost in Space was the robot.
Right.
So there you go.
There you go. All right. Well, steel yourselves for that. But until then,
no Clue Gulagers were harmed in the making of this podcast.
And now we know where the fish lives. Take it away, Theme Squad. I thought it was Grandma who got a little nude.